Donald Trump was golfing once again this weekend after crashing the markets on Friday. Donald Trump announcing that he won yet another golf tournament, and that was blasted on state regime media known as Fox. Today, by the way, as Donald Trump returned to Washington, D.C., the market now resembles a Trump meme coin. Down, up, down, up. Does not look like a stable market. Many CEOs are saying that the country is already in a recession. Donald Trump's message, he's not going to change anything. He doesn't give an F. Also, throughout the country, as Trump was posting these photos of himself playing golf and also making posts saying Trump is intentionally crashing the markets, we also learned tragic news. Storms across the country killed 18 Americans. The United States received 4 American soldiers who died in Lithuania. Donald Trump was not at that ceremony where you would normally see a president. Instead, Donald Trump returned to Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach to golf. And then today, Donald Trump was in the Oval Office with who else? Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And with Netanyahu by his side, Donald Trump was talking about seizing control of Gaza, putting American forces or peace forces in Gaza and calling it a great piece of real estate. But throughout this weekend as well, we saw major protests sweep the country. The hands-off protests, which we were covering here at all levels at the MeidasTouch Network. I think there was about over 5 million protesters when you add up all of the different cities, thousands of cities and towns across the country and the world. Notably, corporate news really did not cover this at all. But thankfully, here at the MeidasTouch Network, we made it a priority to cover those. The same way we made it a priority to focus on these shadow hearings being held by Democrats. Today, we were getting 30,000, 35,000 viewers at some point in times while we were watching that as they focused on Donald Trump's attack of lawyers and the Department of Justice. And speaking of the law, I want to talk about this horrible Supreme Court ruling from earlier in the day about the kidnapping of a migrant from El Salvador who the Trump regime sent back to El Salvador against the order of a court, an immigration court from 2019. The Supreme Court stopped a lower court order which directed the Trump regime to bring back this individual. So Trump now has more time to delay as this individual rots in a El Salvador concentration camp. And the implications here are just broader than that individual as well. If Trump can do that to this individual, who else can he do that to? We'll talk about that and more here on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I'm Ben. I was joined by Brett and Jordy. Brothers, how you doing?
Doing great. Great to see you, brothers. Great to see everybody watching. Great to be speaking with all the people listening on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. What a weekend, you guys. The hands-off protest, absolutely incredible. The biggest mobilization that we have seen today to date. Hey, Donald, you finally got those crowds that you were talking about, but not the crowds that you were hoping for. The people are fed up, folks. And it was such an honor to cover these protests, honestly. I'm so impressed by all the groups that organized this, by all the people out there who took to the streets, all of you out there. I know so many of you listening made your own signs. You guys were out there putting in the hard work. I loved seeing your signs. I noticed a lot of people with MeidasTouch signs as well out there, which I thought was super, super cool. We had our correspondents on the ground. Tennessee Brando spoke at the Los Angeles event. We were doing the live coverage, the reports. We were city to city interviewing the organizers. What a weekend for democracy. The democracy does indeed have a pulse. And on the other hand, you see Donald Trump right now. Let's face it, this is the most disastrous beginning of a presidency that we have ever seen in the history of this country, crashing the markets, national security failures, ruining all of our foreign policy, destroying our alliances. It's like a speed run with the destruction of America coming from this administration. We are going to get into all of it. But first, I got to toss it to Jordy and see how little bro is doing. What's up, Jordy?
What's up, everybody? I am so stoked to get into it. Brett, to your point exactly, man, the energy from the protest, the energy is palpable, man. There's a dramatic vibe shift and people are just fed the F up, man. This is like unlike anything we've ever seen before. I mean, I'm motivated after watching everything go down over the weekend. I love seeing all the signs, just like you said, Brett. Thanks to everyone for tagging us in all of those posts. And just shout out to everyone on the ground this weekend. That was freaking awesome. Benji, where do you want to start us off?
I just want to reflect on that. It was probably one of the biggest mass mobilizations, if not the biggest, in the history of the United States. I think in the total, I've been speaking with the organizers, about 5 million people in the different cities and towns showed up. And by the way, red areas, blue areas, purple areas, people showed up. But the fact that it got minimal attention from corporate news tells you everything that you need to know there. I mean, in normal times where there wasn't an authoritarian who made corporate news bend the knee and kiss the ring, this should be a front page story. But good news, we're covering it here every step of the way on the MeidasTouch network. And the contrast between that image of people rising up as Donald Trump was golfing in a tournament at his own resort that was funded by the Saudis, Donald Trump doing business deals with the Saudi sovereign wealth fund to enrich himself and his family while the American people are suffering, right? Thursday, Friday saw what, like $10 trillion of market value just erased from the stock market. And that means people's 401ks and pensions were destroyed. We're seeing companies laying off people, the chaos created in the business community. I mean, you have people, even like the CEO and founder of Home Depot, Ken Langone, like longtime Republican donor, saying this is like the stupidest thing you could possibly ever do. I mean, literally word for word, this is the dumbest thing imaginable. And then Donald Trump just making posts over the weekend, like just toying with the people, like just cruelly toying with the people. I mean, he posted a video that said Trump is intentionally crashing the markets. He posted a video that said that. And then he attributed to Warren Buffett, congratulations, that this is what Warren Buffett thought was brilliant. So Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor, had to come out with a statement through Berkshire Hathaway saying he's not endorsing this phony video that says that he's endorsing Trump's plan to crash the markets. And I just want to reflect on that for a moment as well. The president of the United States, though it pains me to say that, from his official account is posting videos saying that he's intentionally crashing the market, and you have still the entire Republican Party like, okay, I guess we got to give him space, give him some time, let him cook. I think this is going to be a good thing. I think this is exactly what he ran on. He said there were going to be lower prices on day one, not that he was going to crash the entire economy. And as I've said before, and as Carl Quintanilla says, trying to cook a steak by burning down the entire house and destroying people's lives and saying, you know what, though, gas is cheaper. You're all screwed, but maybe you could get a little bit of cheaper gas at the pump.
I've been noticing that line too. And by the way, you remember what I told you guys like a week or two ago? I said, just wait for the pivot, guys. I said, wait for the pivot because oil is going to come down because we're heading into a recession, if not a depression. That's a signature sign that is happening. And so watch that collapse and then watch Donald Trump and watch all these MAGA people go, oh boy, look how much oil's come down. And like clockwork, that's the propaganda that they shifted to. Basically today, they started that one amid this total chaos.
So Donald Trump heads back on Air Force One from his golf tournament where he brags about how great he played golf and that he won all of the tournaments and how he's got a great handicap, seriously. And he's asked questions on Air Force One. This Bloomberg reporter's been doing a great job, I think asking the right questions here. Donald Trump calls the question stupid when she asks, what kind of pain tolerance do you think the American people are going to take? He calls her stupid. And then he says, the American people need to take their medicine. I'm feeding them the medicine. You need to take the medicine. This is what sociopaths, abusers sound like. Here, let's play this clip.
In the world,
Mr. President,
which is what it should be.
Is there a Trump put though? Is there pain in the market at some point? You're unwilling to tolerate this idea of a Trump put. Is there a threshold?
I think your question is so stupid. I mean, I think it's I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something, and we have such a horrible, we have been treated so badly by other countries because we had stupid leadership that allowed this to happen.
America was the richest nation in the world. America, under former President Biden, had the highest GDP growth. We had low unemployment. We had record job growth. We were energy independent. And as we'll show you later in this episode, now what these Trump regime officials like Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and Brooke Rollins, the agriculture secretary, and Scott Bessent, the treasury secretary. Like, what they're saying is, what we want to do is, like how in China they put together the iPhones, like we want to create those factories here so that Americans are putting all the screws and widgets together into the iPhones, and that they think that Americans are miraculously going to start doing those jobs. At the same time, they're also saying that they want AI and robots to replace low-wage labor jobs as well. Nothing that they say makes sense. And as we'll talk about later in the show as well, the tariff formula for their Liberation Day, which is really Annihilation Day or Great Recession or Depression or Liquidation Day, whatever you want to call it, the very formula is incorrect. Even a conservative think tanks are saying your formula, which is also not based on reciprocal tariffs, which is based on you're calculating trade deficits as a form of a tariff, which makes no sense. But even if you applied this concept that a deficit is a tariff somehow, the formula is applied incorrectly. And it just goes to show everything they do is just incorrect and erroneous as well. But let's get back to what I was going down on Air Force One, where Donald Trump landing into D.C. after vacationing again on the taxpayer dime, again, as storms led to the death of about 18 Americans in areas like Tennessee and Arkansas, which Trump said nothing about. Trump hasn't made any public statements on his own volition about the American soldiers who died in Lithuania. But here he is talking about how great of a golf game he has, and how he's got such a great handicap with golf. And, I won the tournament. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President. Good. Are any questions?
How was the golf tournament?
Very good, because I won. It's good to win. You heard I won, right? Did you hear I won? Just to back it up, you were there, I won.
What's your handicap
I like
these
to
days?
win very low. I have a very low handicap. Okay, let's go.
Sir, Chinese foreign
Back up a little
Sure.
bit.
The Chinese foreign ministry said that the market is supposed.
What in the Kim Jong-un is that right here? And let me answer what in the Kim Jong-un is that. State regime media known as Fox, with people like Jesse Waters, while the markets are crashing, while the futures were down enormous amounts, they were on Friday over the weekend. What were they saying? They were saying, this is courage. He's staring the stock market in the face. He's golfing in the face of a crash. This is what bravery looks like. Here, play this clip.
Trump's trade war is high risk, high reward. But he's not biting his fingernails, staring at the Dow. Today, he actually played golf, which if Biden had done, I definitely wouldn't have criticized him for it.
The way they make a mockery, Brett, Jordy, and Midas Mighty, they're telling the people what ridiculous propaganda they have. And this isn't funny. This is people's lives that they're playing with. And they've got their viewers so MAGA mush brainwashed, their Fox viewers. This is people's lives, though, and they treat it like it's a game and like it's funny, Brett.
Out of all the hosts on Fox, also, Jesse Waters in particular has an incredible level of disdain for his own viewers because he mocks them like that on a nightly basis. Every single night, he's making comments like that, acknowledging that he's in on the scheme, he's in on the scam, he's in on exactly what they are doing at Fox. And right now, they have to run protection for Donald Trump, these disastrous policies. They have to make it seem like, okay, you are looking in your 401k accounts, you are getting laid off from your job. How can we spin this as a good thing? And they go into overdrive, and it gets more and more ridiculous as they try to counter what's actually happening in reality with their spin. And that's why, and we'll show some more clips too, because like the level of like North Korea style propaganda that we are seeing from the Trump regime right now is like nothing we have ever seen before in the United States of America. And Donald Trump is going full authoritarian. He is leaning into all the things that they do in authoritarian countries, in North Korea, in Russia. We'll talk about the military parade that he wants to hold for himself on his birthday soon as well. But all the things that he is doing make the people suffer and make them beg you for the scraps. That's a typical thing that dictators have done throughout history. That's what Donald Trump is doing right here. Make the people suffer, then make them beg you for help. And then you throw them little breadcrumbs, and then they go, oh, thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you. Thank you. That's what he wants from people right now. And the issue with this whole tariff scheme is this was done in the worst way possible. And I think, no matter how much I disagree with what Trump is doing here, and I disagree with what he's doing vehemently, I think his plan is absolutely atrocious. this, and it's clearly destroying the markets and putting uncertainty in the markets. But even if there was a world where I did agree somehow with what Trump was doing, there's a reasonable way to roll things out so that it doesn't ruin people's lives, so that it doesn't throw businesses into chaos, so that it doesn't make people unemployed. There's a way to make it so the business community is able to prepare for these tariffs. There's a way to make it so other countries are able to prepare so that we could have an honest way of doing trade. But because Trump always, because everything is projection with Trump, Trump calls everybody else abusers when Trump himself is the abuser. He is abusing the global trade system. And I just want you to think, like, I'll put out this hypothetical right now, right? Trump's been changing his mind on these tariffs like every other day. It's this rate, it's that rate. We're taking it away. We're negotiating with these countries. No, we're not negotiating with these countries. If you're a business in the United States, and even if you want to build a factory in the United States because of these tariffs, are you going to sink millions, if not tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into building a factory in the United States if Donald Trump can one day come on in and say, oh, I'm just kidding about that tariff. I'm actually taking away that tariff. I cut a deal. I got us a good deal. All of a sudden, that company's investments in this factory were for nothing, and they just lost a whole bunch of money, and their competition now is way ahead of them. You can't negotiate. You can't do business here, abroad. You can't do anything with somebody who is so unstable like Donald Trump. And the one thing that you need, if you're in the business community, the one thing that you need if you want to work in general is stability. There's nothing more important than stability, and there is nothing less that I could say that there's a quality of Donald Trump than stability. There's no strategy here. There is zero coherence here. It is full on chaos nonstop, and it's just not a good thing. This is why you see even these billionaire CEOs and a lot of these oligarchs who have backed Donald Trump. I'm talking the Bill Ackmans of the world. I'm even talking Elon Musk came out and said that he didn't like tariffs. There's a reason why they are all panicking as well, because they know that this is a stupid idea that is going to wreck their companies. And like everything's going to have a domino effect here also as the stock market goes down, as investors get margin called, as these companies struggle to keep up with everything that's going on. They're going to have to lay off more people. Now these people aren't going to be able to find jobs at other places. America's as a competitive leader in the world is completely ruined. And those jobs, even Howard Lutnick of the Trump administration right now is admitting that if those jobs even were to come back here, which is unlikely to begin with, that they would be robots doing the jobs, not American workers. So they are completely setting this up, like all of their scams, to help the billionaires, to help the factory owners, but not the factory workers. And right now, this is just a perfect storm that this administration has created, and the Republicans could end it in 2 seconds if they wanted to. They could pass legislation to stop this at any point, but you have the cowards like Mike Johnson who refuse, and this entire Republican Party who refuse to do anything about this.
Exactly, Brett. The coverage that mainstream media and congressional Republicans, the Republican Party at large, is giving Trump right now is utterly ridiculous, and it should light a fire just under every single American, because they are gaslighting you. They are all gaslighting you at once, and they just hope you don't care enough. They hope that they could distract you with the trans volleyball player on San Jose State or this issue or that issue and not look at your 401ks.
It was trans billboards today, Jordy.
Billiard.
And trans billiards, and I think it was a billiards game from like 2 years ago. That's what they're running with on Fox today.
The Republicans in Congress have absolutely zero backbone. And this is going to go down as just one of the biggest stains on the Republican Party forever. As long as there's a country, everyone's going to remember where these Republicans stood at this moment in time. When the stock market's crashing, when businesses are terrified, everyone will remember where these Republicans stood, and it's going to make a difference. And you know what's so infuriating too? We just actually have to ask the question. Donald Trump's cognitive ability, can you even call it a cognitive ability? He's not all there. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic or just, for the clicks and the likes. It's very obvious by his speech and what he cares to put out in public that he's not being a very serious person right now. And the only thing that I can conclude is that he is simply just not all there. He wants to talk about his golf game. He wants to talk about going to these golf tournaments and that he competes. He's not Jack Nicholson. I mean, what are we talking about? We just accept that this guy competes in these like senior golf championships and he hoists the trophy that they give him and they give him every putt. Like, this is some really sick stuff that we're witnessing. This is the guy that has the nuclear codes. Okay. And the Republicans in Congress are just covering his ass. Why? Why? We need to ask the questions here, because at the end of the day, it's every single American and future Americans who are going to be paying the price for this disgusting, ridiculous behavior.
I like that Jordy said he's not Jack Nicholson. I think he meant Jack Nicholas, but
I always confuse them, and I'm so thrilled that you called me out on that, because everyone picked up on the difference there.
Well, Jordy, going back to what Brett said, I would say that whatever it is, it's textbook authoritarian mindset, which is, by the way, I mean, Vladimir Putin goes and sits on horses with his shirt off, and he tries to act like he's so strong, and he says that he wins these jiu-jitsu competitions, right? Kim Jong-un is photographed a certain way. This is part of the authoritarian playbook, and part of the authoritarian playbook is you make people suffer. You think Putin cares about how people in Russia are doing? No. You think Kim Jong-un cares about how people in North Korea are doing? No. Authoritarians don't care how their people are doing. In fact, authoritarians actually want their populations to suffer and do worse, so that their populations go and beg for breadcrumbs, and they are the ones, as the authoritarians, who hand out the breadcrumbs. They view economic independence, and actually, Donald Trump is all projection and confession. Trump views economic independence as liberation. Trump's Liberation Day is liberation of an authoritarian ethos and actually crushing the freedom of Americans. And that's why I think he uses that term as well, because now people have to go and beg for exemptions. I need your help. Countries have to, in his mind, beg him for exemptions. So now he becomes, in his own mind, the most important person who gets to basically say, I give you this exemption. I give you go bankrupt, you go bankrupt. He likes to see that he's crashing international markets. That gives him joy to feel that he has that power, and people have to go and beg and beg and beg. The thing is that the international community is forming their own alliances now. In the short term, they're trying to stop the bleeding. In the long term, they're viewing America as no longer a reliable ally, and that they have to create new structures to isolate the United States. I mean, Europe announced that it was going to have its own reciprocal tariffs. I mean, Canada was preparing, its tariffs. China announced its own retaliation, to which then Donald Trump said, well, and if you do that, I'm going to do this, which basically would mean, 105% tariffs on China. You take a look at what Apple is doing. After Trump announced that. Is Apple going to build the factory in Indiana? No. Where are they going to go? They're going to go to India. Why? Because it's still cheaper to do business there versus Indiana. I saw an analysis that was done by, I believe, Fortune magazine, and I saw others do this analysis as well. If you had to move the entire supply chain for an iPhone just here into the United States, all parts like the Trump regime wants, it would cost $30,000 for a single iPhone if you had to make everything here in the United States. And so corporations are not going to follow what Trump is actually saying. It still doesn't make any sense at all. And the rollout here is so sloppy and embarrassing. I want to talk about that and more. We got to take our first quick break of the show. I want to remind everybody, very soon we're going to be doing, probably in the next, I think we'll do it next week. We're going to hold our April Zoom meeting with our members here on our Patreon, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. If you ever wanted to meet me, Brett, and Jordy, sign up now to make sure you get the invite with the secret link to meet Brett, Jordy, and I. We're going to be dropping that link in the next day or two. And again, we're going to hold that next week. Also, check out store.MeidasTouch.com, store.MeidasTouch.com. That's where you get the Meidas gear. Lots of people have been asking, we want the Meidas gear. Where do you get it? You get it at store.MeidasTouch.com. And for our Canadian listeners and viewers, we have separately made Maple Meidas gear in Canada. So it's 100% made and manufactured in Canada, not in the United States. You see the Maple Midas gear right there for our viewers, our listeners. You can check it out at store.MeidasTouch.com. We're going to take our first quick break of the show. We've got a lot more to cover. And also, the Midas Touch was, I think, the only network to get our hands on the Obama speech and appearance that he did at Hamilton College. And that's gone very viral based on what he said. So we'll show you that and more. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
Before I found Public Rec, I dreaded putting on real pants. You know the ones, tight waistbands, stiff fabric, squeezing all the wrong places. Honestly, it would make me not even want to go out at all. But then I discovered Public Rec and everything changed. I'm obsessed with these pants. The first time I slipped them on, I could not believe how comfortable they were. It felt like I was wearing joggers, but I looked like I could walk into a nice dinner or hit the bar. I've worn them to meetings, out to grab drinks, to workouts, and even on a long flight, and yep, I have absolutely fallen asleep in them too. Public Rec nails that perfect balance between comfort and style. True story, after I got my first pair, I loved them so much I went right back on their website and ordered them in just about every single color. I am already eyeing their shorts and hoodies next. Comfortable enough for the couch, sharp enough for the city. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using code MeidasTouch20 at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com and use code MeidasTouch20. That's MEIDAS20 and you're all set. Oh, and when they ask how you found them, be sure to mention our show. It really helps us out. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference.
If there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with pre-alcohol. Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on having a great next day without worrying. Look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but then while hanging out with some friends over at our local brewery, I gave it a shot, and believe me, it's the real deal. When I first gave pre-alcohol a try months ago, I was at a wedding. I drank it before my first martini, and you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the very next morning. This March Madness, don't let anything sideline your celebrations. Grab pre-alcohol before you go out and be ready to cheer on your team all day and night long. Go to zbiotics.com/Meidas to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Meidas at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/Meidas and use code Meidas at checkout for 15% off. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both YouTube and the audio. Shout out Z-Biotics. They've been a big sponsor of ours forever. So definitely check them out if you're interested. And shout out Public Rec, man. They're awesome. Use the codes, use the links. Let them know we sent you if they ask. Benji, where to next?
The stock market today resembled like the Trump meme coin, the way it looked, right? It would go all the way down, then it would go up, then it would go all the way down, then it would go up. And these are swings that are not reflective of a stable market. These are the swings that are reflective of the whims of a maniac. I want to go back to what I was saying, though, before the break. That's right out of the authoritarian playbook. The Trump regime, specifically Trump, wants everything to be at his whim. I say this, the market rises. I say this, the market crashes. That creates ultimately, though, in the long run, the perfect recipe for the worst case scenario when it comes to the economy. We're not reliable. We're not a stable place to do business. And it's just a matter of time, though, before the international community is able to build these structures. And trust me, they're building it right now, that basically isolate and alienate the United States economy for generations. I mean, we're seeing the boycott, of course, elbows up from Canada, tourism boycott, that exceeding all projections. By the way, all these economists and all of these, not just economists, really the kind of corporate projectors, they've been wrong about like everything. Oh, we think it's not going to be that bad. We think, I'm like, look, what are you talking about? it's clearly going to be that bad. I think in some areas it's like 75 to 80% boycotts of certain types of leisure travel and tourism. I still think, some of these projections are in denial. I think it's going to be 10, 20%. Then y'all aren't following what's happening again. Also a boycott of goods. Also, we're seeing the boycott expand also internationally in Europe and Australia, New Zealand, Africa and other places as well, Asia, because they're seeing the way, America is treating them. I want to share with you what's going on, though, from the Trump propagandists while all of this is taking place. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was previously living in a $22 million replica of Barbie's mansion, or whatever you call it, Malibu Barbie mansion, or whatever they're calling it, like a pink $22 million mansion in Charleston, South Carolina, and this guy's like the most arrogant guy in the world. So, he's asked, like, what's your message to the American people who are suffering right now? And let me just show you what he says. Let's play this clip.
What is your message to Americans who want to retire right now and who've just seen their lifetime savings drop significantly?
Well, Kristen, I think that's a false narrative. Americans who want to retire right now, the Americans who have put away for years in their savings accounts, I think they don't look at the day-to-day fluctuations of what's happening.
Really? You think Americans don't look at the day-to-day fluctuations and what's happening, and that Americans have enough in their savings to not care about these market crashes? That's what the Trump regime is messaging. It doesn't matter. You need to face pain and suffering and hardship. That's what they're saying. Take a look at Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. He or she is asked, I think, a very fair question, like, why would you tariff penguins? Like, why are you tariffing American military bases? Like, don't you see that this looks sloppy and dangerous? Take a listen to what she says in response. Let's play it.
President Trump laid out with a giant graphic of all the countries where tariffs were going to be, what he called reciprocal tariffs, were going to be imposed. And you're imposing a 10% tariff on the herd in McDonald Islands. The herd in McDonald Islands have 0 human inhabitants. They have 0 exports. They have 0 imports. They do have a lot of penguins. Why are you putting import tariffs on islands that are entirely populated by penguins?
Well, I mean, come on, Jake. Obviously, here's the bottom line. We live under a tariff regime from other countries. We have too long
the McDonald Islands is not imposing
the idea that America goes first. I mean, come on. Whatever. Listen, the people that are leading this are serious, intentional, patriotic, the smartest people I've ever worked with.
Usually the smartest people don't go out and say, I'm the smartest person. I'm the most patriotic and stable person. That's usually not the way smart people conduct themselves. And then just the premise is a lie. We're living a tariff regime under other people. Not really. I mean, y'all are calculating tariffs based on trade deficits and based on some cockamamie formula that's also applied wrong based on trade deficits with country. And as people said, who cares if there's a trade deficit with Vietnam if we're buying more? Of course, we're going to be buying more cheaper products from a country like Vietnam than they're going to be buying from the United States. What are we even talking about here? Why is that some shock? And why are we using that delta as part of some methodology to calculate that they're tariffing this amount? And then you see, like, they spike the football and they're like, we got Cambodia to break. Cambodia says that they, like, what are you even talking about? You got Cambodia to break. You got Vietnam to break and submit, while like Europe is standing up. All these people are, all these other countries are building structures to basically.
Ben, I want to say this too, if I can. So Trump, in his best case scenario, and his big pitch for why these tariffs are so amazing, says tariffs are going to make us rich. It's always a get rich quick scheme with Trump, right? It's always, it's going to make you rich. It's not going to make you rich. You're never going to see this money. Hate to break it to you, listeners. But Trump always goes, tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to get $1 trillion. Like Dr. Evil, this guy. We're going to get $1 trillion from tariffs. I'll say 2 things about the $1 trillion from the tariffs. I'll say, first, in the past week or so alone, under Donald Trump, the stock market has already lost $10 trillion in value. $10 trillion removed from the United States economy for this theoretical $1 trillion that he's talking about. I'll just put that there. I know it's not exactly apples to apples, but I'll just say that we're already getting quite screwed by Donald Trump's plans exponentially upon these the 1 trillion mark. Secondly, do you know where the $1 trillion comes from? Do you know who's paying that $1 trillion that he's talking about the United States earning? You are. It's not the other countries, because tariffs are a tax on American companies, and tariffs are a tax that are passed along to American consumers. So every time Trump is bragging about all the money that we're going to make from these tariffs, he is bragging, quite literally and directly, he is bragging about raising your taxes and taking your money. That's what he's bragging about anytime he says we're going to get rich off tariffs, to be clear.
Trump was in the Oval Office today with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So while the market is having these kind of massive fluctuations throughout the day after a Thursday, Friday crash, after international markets crashed, this was now the day to highlight Donald Trump's deranged and demented international policies, if you even want to call it that. This is where he calls Gaza an incredible piece of real estate, wants to get rid of all the Palestinian people from Palestine, send them to these other countries, which didn't Donald Trump also say that that was going to happen already? Didn't Donald Trump also say that he had figured out and all these other countries wanted that to happen? Of course, he lied about that. I was wondering if today was going to be one of the days where he talks about the Trump gold card, which he's selling to Russian and Chinese oligarchs for $5 million a piece. By the way, should be noted that from that tariff list that Donald Trump put out, Russia was not listed on that, even though yes, there's lots of sanctions on Russia, but there is still some trade. You could have easily put Russia on that tariff list. Russia wasn't on that list. The Taliban in Afghanistan, they got an exemption to the formula applied to other countries. That's a notable one right there. But no, today was Bring in Netanyahu Again Day. Wasn't he just there like last month? Bring in Netanyahu Day. And this is where Trump talks about owning the real estate he calls, his real estate deal that he wants to do to take over and control Gaza. This is what happened earlier in the day. Let's play it.
Thanks, Berman, for the Times of Israel. The IDF is fighting again in the Gaza Strip. I myself might be called up in a month. Do you think that's the way to pressure Hamas to get to a deal? And do you think blocking humanitarian aid is also an effective pressure?
Well, you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate, and I think it's something that we would be involved in, but having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing. Because right now, all it is for years and years, all I hear about is killing and Hamas and problems. And if you take the people, the Palestinians, and move them around to different countries, and you have plenty of countries that will do that, and you really have a freedom zone. You call it the freedom zone, a free zone.
Jordy, I think that's your point. Freedom zone. You call it a freedom zone. That's what, and now you want to put, you heard what he said today. In any normal times, that would be a major disqualifying story, right? He's calling Gaza a piece of real estate that he wants to control with American peace forces, he calls it, in a freedom zone, he says, that he wants to take control of. By the way, of course, Donald Trump was incapable of keeping the ceasefire, going that former President Biden negotiated. And then this also just reminds me also, guys, of that we just kind of move away. You have to keep track of all of Donald Trump's lies with the fact also that he promised on day one there was going to be peace in Ukraine. Right? Donald Trump promised in 24 hours or even before he took office, there would be peace in Ukraine. But then, later in the week, you've got attack Zelensky, push Russian propaganda day. There's tank the market day. There's gold card day. There's invite Netanyahu and talking about owning Gaza.
He's setting the whole world on fire, this guy. I mean, and all the promises. And you could go, Ukraine, Gaza, economy, national security. You go through everything. He's just
no tax on tips.
he's destroying everything, and he's not coming through with any of those other promises, like Jordy just said, the no tax on tips. I mean, and all he's done is also give Netanyahu a green light to just go through and like massacre a bunch of people. So like I think it's really screwed up what we are seeing here. And when we see Netanyahu in the Oval Office and they're talking about people as if they are objects, displacing them, essentially speaking about ethnic cleansing, taking people against their will, sending them to other countries, who have never asked for people, don't want them. Like people want to live where they live. And I think just it's so disgusting to hear him speak about this area in terms of, oh, the real estate is so great. Oh, Israel really screwed up back in the day by not keeping that oceanfront property, great real estate, oceanfront property. We could do beautiful things. Like people live here. Like there are people who live here. And I think it is just so disheartening to say the least, but it is stomach churning when you see him making these comments so nonchalantly and how little attention it now gets because he just says one crazy thing after the next every single day. And
then you want to know the two promises, Brett, that he, I guess, did fulfill? One, that Americans are going to feel pain. Americans are certainly feeling pain. That was he said that during the campaign trail. And then what else?
Well, Trump never said Americans were going to feel pain. Elon Musk said Americans were going to feel pain.
The de facto president, Elon Musk, said that.
Trump never said that at all, quite frankly. Trump said that everything on day one was going to be fixed. Trump said day one, your prices are going to be lower. Trump said day one, Ukraine done. Trump said day one, no issues in Gaza anymore. Trump said day one, lower prices, lower gas, lower egg price. I mean, he went through the entire list of every problem in America and said it was going to be solved on day one. Instead, Americans are paying more. The world is in chaos. The United States is a laughing stock. Nobody is traveling to this country because they are not only because they don't like Donald Trump, because they are scared of being taken off the street and thrown in an El Salvadorian torture camp. Mm-hmm. Like, think about just that. That's where we are as a country right now. And I don't think it's fully set into a lot of people because it's happened so quickly, how quickly Donald Trump has brought the United States into this authoritarian, at minimum, into an authoritarian frame. Because I still do believe that the people here have the power. And I think the people showed that over the weekend at these protests. And by the way, these protests are going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. As we've been speaking about for months and months now, that there was going to be a summer of democracy. And we got to see a taste of that this spring, a spring of democracy, a democracy spring. Well, we're going to see a summer of democracy as what you saw over the weekend, as big as that was, by comparison, going to make that look small. But we can't lose sight of the fact that the things Donald Trump is doing by threatening judges, by threatening law firms, these law firms bending over backwards to try to help Donald Trump so that they're not punished, these universities bending over backwards to appease Donald Trump, these military parades that Donald Trump is doing on his birthday. All of this stuff is at minimum, and I know I'm certainly probably even putting it lightly here, at minimum, authoritarian framing is what we have in this country right now. And it doesn't sit right with me. This is not the America that I know. And this is not the America that I want to leave behind for future generations. And I think that's why we are all here fighting. That's why this community is here every single day, because we all know the stakes. We all know how important this is. And we refuse to take it. We refuse to bend and we refuse to cower like these media companies that we see, like these colleges, like these lawyers. We're not going to do that here at the MeidasTouch Network. And I know the people watching here are not going to do that as well.
You see what Trump cabinet members are wearing, the lapel pin? It's literally lapel pins of Donald Trump's face on it, replacing the American flag. They used to have the AR, they did the American flag, then the AR-15. And now, for example, the chairman of the Federal Communication Commission, who regulates communications, radio, TV, internet, satellite, and cable in the United States, wears Trump pins on Trump's face as a pin. Brett, you mentioned the Trump parade on June 14th in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump's going to be doing he's preparing, this is what's being reported, a military parade bringing tanks and weapons in Washington, D.C., the way authoritarians do that, the way Kim Jong-un does military parades. Trump wanted to do this in 2018, but when there were actually military generals who were standing up to him, they said, you can't do this. One, it's going to cost like $100 million. Two, it's going to like damage the streets. And three, it's just a bad look for like a democracy to do that. Well, Trump is planning that. And I think part of the reason Trump is planning that is also in response to the protests that he's seeing. I think Trump is scared at seeing 5 million Americans show up at a protest. It doesn't shock me that the timing of the announcement that leaking was around the time that we saw Americans rise up, and I think the biggest mass mobilization ever. And I think conduct like that is going to just have more Americans rise up against the Trump regime as he engages in this conduct. That's all we know for now about the military parades, but I think Donald Trump's fully going to go through with this thing. I think it's going to look absolutely ridiculous. But you piece all of this together, the small things, the lapel pin, to the kidnappings and sending people to concentration camps in El Salvador and partnering with the authoritarian leader there, what Trump is doing with the tariffs, which are a way to exert authoritarian power by declaring emergencies that don't exist, to do end runs around Congress to make people beg him. All of this in its totality is easily explainable when you realize authoritarians want people to suffer. That's what Donald Trump's trying to inflict. When we get back, I want to talk more about the protests. I want to talk about the shadow hearings that are taking place that we're covering here on the MeidasTouch Network. I want to talk about the status of Abrego Garcia, who is currently rotting in an El Salvador concentration camp. Not sure if y'all saw 60 Minutes, by the way, who Donald Trump is also suing for $20 billion because he didn't like the way former Vice President Kamala Harris answered their questions when Trump was too afraid during the campaign to even sit for an interview at 60 Minutes. Their analysis was 75% of the people sent to the concentration camps in El Salvador who were kidnapped in the United States have no criminal record here or from where they came from at all. 75%. We're going to talk about all of that, and I got to show you former President Obama's statement at Hamilton College. That full video is loaded up on our YouTube channel as well. You'll only get it exclusively here on the MeidasTouch Network, the home of all the broadcasting of where these protests are taking place. That and more when we come back. I want to remind everybody, store.meidastouch.com. Get your MeidasTouch gear for all the Maple Midas out there in Canada. We've separately produced and manufactured, made in Canada only, the Maple Midas gear, store.meidastouch.com there. Check out patreon.com/MeidasTouch as well to meet Brett, Jordy, and I with the secret link. We're going to be holding a Zoom meeting next week. We'll be back. We've got a lot more to discuss. We'll take our last quick break of the show.
So you ever wake up and feel like your body just hit the snooze button on life? Yeah, same. Honestly, aging sneaks up on you in some wild ways. Whether it's a night out or a good workout, I just don't bounce back the way that I used to. One day you're full of energy, the next you're Googling how to stretch without pulling a muscle. I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is Qualia Senolytic, and here's why. It's designed to help your body naturally eliminate something called senescent cells, also known as zombie cells. These are the ones that just hang around after they've stopped doing their job, draining your energy and making you feel, well, old. Think joint discomfort, sluggish recovery, low energy, the whole deal. Qualia Senolytic is a groundbreaking supplement made with 9 plant-based nutrients, and you only take it 2 days a month. That's it. Since I started taking it, I felt more energized, quicker to recover from workouts, and honestly, just more like me again. Plus, Qualia's breakthrough formulation is vegan, non-GMO, and tested by leading scientists. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Meidas for an additional 15%. That's QUALIA life.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, for that extra 15% off. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
What does the future hold for business? You ask 9 experts, you get 10 different answers. Bull market, bear market. Will rates rise? Will rates fall? Can someone please invent a crystal ball? Until then, over 40,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions, like we need to do at the MeidasTouch Network. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. And you know I love data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time on what's next. That's why I use this, and you should too. So whether your company is earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to the immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Meidas. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/Meidas. That's netsuite.com/Meidas. One more time, go to netsuite.com/Meidas. Thanks, NetSuite.
Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Click the links, use the codes, let them know we sent you. Benji, you mentioned it really quickly. I think it's just worth touching on one more time that Trump is planning a military parade through the streets of DC to celebrate his 79th birthday. I mean, that's just an insane sentence to even say. And back before Bill Maher went sideways, he used to warn that Trump, that this is something that he wants to bring to the States, these military, style parades.
Well, we're seeing all the things that he wanted to do in his previous presidency, but there were guardrails that still existed then, and there were people that were around him to tell him no, generals, military. He's purged all those people, and he's completely taken over the Republican Party. And now they just go, yes, you want a parade? We'll give you a parade, sir.
Whether or not if he's going to do this or not, I think the obvious answer is, yeah, he's going to do this. And this is going to be one of the most bizarro things to take place in the streets of DC that we've ever, quite frankly, seen.
Jordy, this is why though the whole thing is a sham. The whole administration is the whole thing is a sham. Because if you were really concerned about wasteful spending, you wouldn't spend more than $100 million on something like this. And that's, I'm honestly almost like upset by a lot of the things, just from like a intellectual level, I guess, because when I look at what Elon Musk has done with Doge, for example, could have been an amazing opportunity, honestly, to make the government more efficient if you actually had an honest broker at the helm, if you had people giving legitimate numbers, if you had, like I said earlier with the tariffs, a plan rather than let's just throw all this stuff out in the first few weeks, fire people, make them lose their jobs, have all these lawsuits, have all this chaos, destroy these agencies, make it so people can't even get weather forecasts in some areas, make it so people are waiting hours online for their Social Security phone calls, all that stuff. There was a way that you could go through and you could actually make the government more efficient. And I would love that, quite frankly. And I'm sure there's an Elon Musk of the past who would have been very good at that. An Elon Musk before he got red-pilled or propagandized by his own social media app or whatever the heck that happened with Elon Musk. Because I think there would have been a great opportunity. Instead, this is an administration. It's the gang that can't shoot straight. They can't do anything right. Doge is all a scam. It's the whole thing. They say these big numbers. They're fake. They put these numbers on their website. You look into them for a second. There were contracts that were already canceled 10 years ago, or the numbers are inflated. Or it's all a scam. And with this military parade in 2018 or 2019, whatever the year was one of those years that they were going to do this parade. It was going to cost over $90 million for the parade alone. And then an additional about $20 million in order to fix the streets and the damage, because streets in Washington, D.C. are not designed for military planes and all this stuff to be pulled alongside it and to drive down it. So they were going to do it knowing that it was going to damage the streets and completely destroy the infrastructure in D.C. But Trump doesn't give a shit. So he's going to be doing it now. And there's going to be a lot of waste here, and all for this. And it will really show, that will be the moment, if and when he goes through with it, that will really show that the America of the past is gone, dead, not here anymore. And it's going to be up to us to revive it.
I went to law school in Washington, D.C. They didn't really even have the infrastructure for snow plows. So you think you're going to put a tank and roll a tank through the streets of Washington, D.C.? Going back to what you were saying also about, Elon Musk and, these oligarchs. What's one of the biggest issues right now confronting the American people? Housing, right? The affordability of housing. People are working jobs and they can't afford a house. They could barely even afford to rent when they're working full-time jobs. They have to work multiple jobs just to be able to rent, and they live paycheck to paycheck. So if something happens, they get evicted. And when that happens, that's like psychological torture to people, and we have to recognize that. So imagine if Elon, with all he built, imagine if the focus was on like Tesla homes, right? Or we're going to build millions of homes in all of these areas. And rather than the news story every day being veterans being fired, or Medicaid being cut, or Social Security Administration offices being shut down, or, national park rangers losing their jobs, or whatever the next disaster is where you wake up and you get this feeling. Imagine if it was, we figured out a way to build homes for $50,000 and we're building, billions of dollars of investment to make sure all Americans can afford their homes. This is a housing boom. Like, imagine channeling it for that. But no, why don't they do that? Remember what I said before. The authoritarian playbook here is to make people suffer. Suffering is not, just like whatever. It is the actual goal. It's not the quirk. It is the end. It is the desire, because that's where authoritarians feast in that moment. What Musk, though, and these other billionaires, though, who are now finding their net worth gutted, and Michael Cohen was someone who basically said this at the outset too. I mean, he knows Trump better than anybody, so he gives some good insights. He's like, you realize that Trump's going to go for the billionaires first. Like, he's going to. So what did Trump do? Does a lot of shakedowns with the billionaires, right? You better settle your lawsuit for $50 million, $100 million, $20 million. He goes after the law firms. And then also what he's doing, he doesn't care that the billionaires are losing their net worth. Trump doesn't care that he's gutting Wall Street. Trump hates Wall Street. Trump always viewed Wall Street as people who look down on him. Trump likes that he's making Wall Street suffer. He doesn't care that it's affecting your pensions and your 401ks and life savings. And the way Donald Trump and his regime are willing to just kidnap people and send them to concentration camps, there's no connection to humanity here. It's just the aggrandization of Donald Trump as an authoritarian. That's where all these moves lead. And Jordy, whether it's, demented, whether it's, malignant narcissism, whether it's, whatever, you can say, well, the way he's talking, he looks unwell. At the end of the day, these are the staples of an authoritarian. I do want to show you this, though, because former President Obama spoke at Hamilton College. The MeidasTouch exclusively got the footage of what went down at Hamilton College at this speech. We have the full speech, the key kind of portions where he's kind of comparing what's going on now and contrasting it to normal times in America. But he spoke at Hamilton College. I think it was a powerful reminder of what once was and what the issues are. Let me just show you a quick clip of former President Obama at Hamilton College, where he's like, could you imagine if I did any of this, any of it, what would happen? Here, play this clip.
Imagine if I had done any of this. Let me just, I just want to be clear about this. Imagine that imagine if I had pulled Fox News' credentials from the White House press corps. You're laughing, but no, this is what's happening. Imagine if I'd said to law firms that were representing parties that were upset with policies my administration had initiated, that you will not be allowed into government buildings. We will punish you economically for dissenting from the Affordable Care Act or the Iran deal. We will ferret out students who protest against my policies. It's unimaginable that the same parties that are silent now would have tolerated behavior like that from me or a whole bunch of my predecessors. So, and I say this not on a partisan basis. This has to do with something more precious, which is, who are we as a country and what values do we stand for?
we have that full speech on our YouTube channel. It's close to 2 million views as of this live recording, and I just think that's going to keep on growing. And Brett, when he asks, and Jordy and Midas Mighty, who are we? Are we a nation that without due process kidnaps human beings without due process and sends them to concentration camps in El Salvador? Then the Trump regime, at least with this guy Abrego Garcia from Maryland, admits in a court filing that it was an error, that it was a mistake, and says, oopsies, in the court filing. There's nothing we can do, even though we said the Trump regime has a contract with Nayib Bukele, the leader of El Salvador. We're not going to do anything to get this individual back, because we're just going to say that this individual is MS-13 and just trust us, bro. Just trust us. Individual never accused of a crime, never convicted of a crime. Just trust us, bro. We're going to say that, and we're going to have him rot. We're not going to pick up the phone and call up Nayib Bukele and say we got it wrong. Hey, can you return that guy? Can you return like the gay barber, hairdresser, who's not a gang member? 75% of the people, no criminal record. They may have had tattoos, mom, dad tattoos, Real Madrid tattoos. And because of that, these individuals who voluntarily showed up to ICE, voluntarily, they were here lawfully as asylum seekers. They show up voluntarily, not hiding. They showed up, and then they get sent to concentration camps, a concentration camp in El Salvador. And so this case about Abrego Garcia, he's the individual from Maryland, working in Maryland, again, no crimes. A Trump immigration judge in 2019 made an order. 2019, Trump was at office. The order was, this guy cannot go back to El Salvador. He'll get killed if he goes there. He was under a protection decree, a protected status decree. He had to check in with ICE. He checked in regularly. He was working. There was someone who made an accusation that he was a gang member back in 2019, but no one ever proved it. There's no evidence that he was. Someone made an accusation, but he was someone who the Trump immigration judge says he can be here. Just have him show up. Trump regime sends him where? The exact place that it says he will get killed if he goes to El Salvador. They send him there. And then they say oopsies in a court filing. A district court judge in Maryland, Judge Zenas, federal judge, says, Donald Trump, you have until April 7th, midnight, find him. Call Nayib Bukele. You said you have a contract with Bukele for $6 million or whatever, $8 million to take migrants. Call him and bring them back. Bring these people back. What are you doing? Trump regime said, nope, not doing it. Go deal with Bukele. We ain't doing it at all. Trump regime appeals the district court ruling to the Fourth Circuit. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals earlier today denied the Trump administration's effort to resist an order to return Abrego Garcia by midnight tonight. Let me just read for you what the ruling says. The panel unanimously agrees that the district court's order requiring the government to facilitate and effectuate the return of Abrego Garcia by no later than 11:59 p.m. should not be stayed, meaning he should return. The government's motion to stay is therefore denied. I write to explain my view. The United States government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the United States off the street and remove him from the country without due process. The government's contention otherwise, and its argument that the federal courts are powerless to intervene, are unconscionable. And then another judge on that panel, Judge Wilkinson, a Reagan appointee, said the Trump administration's position on Abrego Garcia amounts to a path of perfect lawlessness. The facts of this case thus present the potential for a disturbing loophole, namely that the government could whisk an individual to foreign prisons in violation of court orders and then contend, invoking its Article 2 powers, that it is no longer under their custody and there is nothing that can be done. It takes no small amount of imagination to understand that this is a path of perfect lawlessness, is what the court says. Perfect lawlessness. And by the way, in that ruling by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, they also scolded the Justice Department. Kyle Chaney did great reporting here from Politico, scolding the Justice Department for penalizing the lawyer from the DOJ who argued the case. Quote, "The duty of zealous representation is tempered by the duty of candor to the court and the duty to uphold the rule of law." So the DOJ lawyer who went before Judge Zenas admitted the facts, that this was a mistake, that this person shouldn't have been sent to El Salvador because there was a duty to be honest with the judge and not suborn perjury before a federal judge. So then the Trump administration then put that lawyer on administrative leave and basically took an adverse employment action because that lawyer told the truth to the district court judge. So they retaliated against the lawyer for being honest. That part hasn't gotten reported a lot. Also, what hadn't been reported a lot, and I give Kyle Cheney credit again for pointing this one out, the United States frequently, based on extradition treaties, brings in MS-13 gang members into the United States who are abroad. Like, here's a release from March 5th, which talks about an MS-13 member who is in Guatemala. And on March 5th, this same Justice Department reached out to the government there, brought the MS-13 member into the United States to try that MS-13 gang member in the United States prison systems and put that person in the United States. So someone who was MS-13, you bring him into the United States. Someone who's not MS-13 or just a baseless accusation, you send that person to the concentration camp in El Salvador. Now, let's talk about what the Supreme Court did. The Supreme Court then today indefinitely blocked the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal order requiring Abrego Garcia to return. So the Supreme Court, through Chief Justice John Roberts, put a stop to those orders that I just read you before, which said return Abrego Garcia. Now, the Supreme Court ordered that there be, pretty urgent briefing, that the briefing be filed by tomorrow at 5 p.m., or if you're listening to this on Tuesday, that it be filed on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. But the court stopped the actions that said Trump regime return Abrego Garcia back to the United States. And we'll see ultimately what the Supreme Court rules. But Brett, Jordy, to your point, and going back to even what that Reagan appointed judge says, it's not a slippery slope to authoritarianism. It is authoritarianism. It is here right now. And the totality of everything we told you, Occam's razor, the simple explanation is that this is an authoritarian regime. It's not a constitutional crisis. We're beyond the constitutional crisis, right? It is authoritarianism, and now it is an authoritarian regime, also kakistocracy, idiocracy, that also looks more bizarre than, frankly, North Korea, but authoritarian regime meets the people power, right? It meets the resistance. It meets the opposition. It meets people taking to the streets, 5 million people. Corporate media is afraid to report on it. We're reporting on it here on the MeidasTouch Network. We're talking about the hearings that need to be held, these shadow hearings being held by people like Senator Schiff and Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin, pointing out what the Trump's done with the DOJ. The MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives and Senate, they've given up all of their co-equal branch authority to Donald Trump and this authoritarian system. So no one's covering those hearings. We're covering those hearings here. And now we're dealing with what we've seen and what's going on right now, like in Belgrade, right? In Budapest, in Tbilisi, against the Putin regime. We're seeing that against the Trump regime here. These protests are going to grow and grow and grow, and we're going to make sure we cover them every step of the way here on the MeidasTouch Network and use our platform as we did on our Substack, MeidasPlus.com, on our YouTube channel, on all of our socials to make sure we cover these protests from all angles. Brett, I'm sorry, it was a long description of everything, but I had to get into the weeds there.
No, it's a good wrap up of everything going on, and there's a lot to be concerned about, and we're not here to sugarcoat things and let you know that everything's great, because it clearly is not. But there is a lot to be hopeful for as well. And this weekend brought me a lot of hope. A lot of these town halls that we've seen over the past few weeks have brought me a lot of hope. And finally seeing kind of Democrats step up, seeing the people rise up. I think it does give me a kind of a lot of confidence going into the future that we can overcome all this, but we're going to have to stay in this fight. We're going to have to stay just up to date with everything that's going on, make sure that we're on top of everything. And so that's what we promise to do here at the MeidasTouch Network. And I got to thank all of you for being in it, because I know times are tough. I know it's not fun for those who have retirement plans to check their accounts and be like, what the hell is going on? I know it's not fun to wake up to all this chaos, especially after years and years and years of relative quiet and stability, and looking at positive headlines and alliances growing and stock market records and GDP records and employment growing and new factories opening. And we're not seeing that anymore. We're in a totally different country that I, quite frankly, do not recognize at all. But that means that we need to double our efforts. That means we need to work that much harder. And so that's what we're going to do here.
Absolutely. I want to remind everybody, check out MeidasPlus.com. That's our Substack, where our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, who you know and love, goes and cooks. Got some great daily recaps there. If we've missed anything, it's always in Ron's recap. He also did a great article showing you his top protest posters that were out there. That was awesome. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, where you get the secret Zoom link. We're going to be posting soon in the next day or so, and we're going to be hosting a meeting with Brett, Jordy, and I. You could ask us any of the questions you have for us at this special Zoom meeting. Check that out. Store.MeidasTouch.com for the MeidasTouch gear, and for all the Maple Midas out there. Don't worry, we've made it manufacturing 100% Canadian in Canada, with a manufacturing facility out there. That was the most important thing for us to do. Store.MeidasTouch.com. Check that out as well. I know lots of people have been saying, where can I get the MeidasTouch stuff? Store.MeidasTouch.com. Really want to thank everybody for staying in the fight. The resistance grows, the opposition grows. We keep on fighting for the truth every single day. Hang in there. We're grateful for everything that you do. This movement is a people-powered movement. This network is a people-powered network. We're grateful for everything that you've done. So keep checking on our YouTube channel throughout the day for all of the updates. We start in the morning. We go into the night. As another reminder, make sure our audio listeners subscribe on YouTube, YouTube watchers subscribe on audio. Everybody leave a 5-star review on the audio podcast to stop these Rogan people from going in and giving 1-star reviews. If you like the show, give us a 5-star review as well. And other than that, we'll see you on the next updates throughout the evening and in the morning. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to make the MeidasTouch Network the most viewed channel on all of YouTube, the MeidasTouch Podcast, the most downloaded podcast in America and Canada and many other countries. Thank you all so, so much. We're so grateful for you. Jordy?
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty! Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.